Hey, friends, welcome back to the 𝗲𝗏 podcast. I'm your host, 𝗲𝗏, and today we're tackling the topic indoor recess. I live in Ohio, and I'm honestly not sure which recess I dislike more, indoor or outdoor, because in Ohio, you never know what the weather's going to be like. Kids can come to school in the morning in shorts, and by noon, it's pouring down rain or freezing outside. The weather here is just so crazy. In fact, I woke up this morning to about 2 inches of snow on the ground, and we had no clue that it was going to snow overnight. I mean, yesterday I was out shopping in just a hoodie and jeans, and today it's snowing. It's really crazy, and so we just never knew if the kids would be playing inside or outside from day to day. But no matter where you live, having a plan for indoor recess is necessary. You may live someplace that's below zero in the winter, or maybe you have bad air quality, or maybe you're just on duty and you don't feel good enough to go outside yourself. I mean, you never know when you're going to have to let the kids play inside. So let's talk about some ways to do that without losing your sanity and so that indoor recess feels calm and not totally wild. Let's go. Hey, teacher friends, are you ready to use read alouds more intentionally, but you're not sure where to start? I've got you covered. Join my free Winter Read Aloud Challenge, a 4-week experience with simple weekly ideas, mini podcast episodes every Monday morning, fun freebies, book suggestions, and a supportive Facebook group with weekly giveaways. Sign up at 𝘆𝗏𝐷.com/challenge. The fun begins January 5th, so sign up today and make read alouds the easiest part of your day. So I'm a big believer that kids should be allowed to play during recess. They really need that time to just talk and laugh and be kids for a while. But that being said, if you're inside, you need it to be somewhat calm. You can't just let kids go crazy running around the room and stuff like that. So the first thing you want to do is establish some kind of indoor recess rules. I think it's a good idea to sit down with your class and talk to them about this before you have your first indoor recess, because they don't really know what to expect. When you say the word recess to kids, all they know is that's when they get to play and be rowdy. And when they're outside, they can run around and shout and play tag and all that kind of stuff. But more than likely, you don't want that same behavior inside your classroom. So take some time before you actually have indoor recess to talk about your expectations. Explain to kids that even though they're going to be playing, they're still inside the classroom, so they need to keep their voices a little quieter than usual, and they can't run around the room. Whatever your expectations are, you need to let them know. Maybe make an anchor chart where you list your rules for indoor recess and bring it out on the days when your class is going to be inside and review it. That can really help to keep, problems to a minimum. When I was teaching, we had 1 or 2 teachers on recess duty. So if it was your duty day and it was indoors, we had to walk up and down the hallway monitoring all the classrooms because the regular classroom teacher usually wasn't in their room. So the kids were in their rooms alone and they were playing. And it usually wasn't a huge problem, but having some kind of rules established ahead of time is important. Like, what do they do if they have to go to the bathroom? Or what do they do if a toy gets broken or it's missing pieces or somebody isn't sharing? These are all the things to discuss before indoor recess begins. Okay, so the next thing you're going to want to do is decide what the kids are allowed to do during indoor recess. Like I said before, I really think that kids should be able to play during recess. We've had days when I showed a movie, but I don't think it's a very good practice to do that all the time. And my personal opinion is that computers or tablets should be off limits during recess. Honestly, I think kids get enough screen time at home and even during school, and I personally feel like kids should be encouraged to be creative and just play during recess time. So what kind of things can you have the kids do? Well, number one, I think anything where they get to create something is a good idea. I had an art center in my room, and my kids were allowed to use that during recess, and they could make anything they wanted to. I had stuff like construction paper, watercolor paints, craft supplies like pipe cleaners and beads and stamps and stickers and toilet paper rolls and cotton balls, just all sorts of things. And the kids loved to go there and just create whatever they wanted to. They loved it, and they knew that the only rule was they had to clean it up when they were done. Another great indoor recess activity is Play-Doh. Put some different colors of Play-Doh at a table along with a tub of cookie cutters or Play-Doh toys, and kids are going to entertain themselves for a long time with that. Another idea is any kind of building activities. Kids love magnet tiles and Legos and building blocks and pattern blocks and Lincoln logs, all stuff like that. You can challenge them to see who can build the tallest tower or see if they could build a little town, anything like that. If you give the kids the blocks, they're going to figure out what to do with them all on their own. All right, if you have math and literacy centers in your room, you could open those up during indoor recess time too. My kids used to love to go to the writing center during indoor recess. Every kid is different. Some kids wanted to just play with toys, but there were always kids who liked to draw or color or write. And so having all your different centers open gives everybody a chance to do what they really enjoy. I used to go to garage sales during the summer, and I was always looking for indoor recess toys. And by that, I mean just actual toys, stuff like Barbie dolls or Hot Wheel cars or board games. I had a little shelf that I kept in the hallway. My room was at the end of the hall, and I had a little bit of extra space outside my room because I was at the end. And so I put this shelf in the corner of the hall, and it had all my indoor recess toys. And I had a great big box of Barbie dolls and Barbie furniture. I had another box that was full of Polly Pockets and a bunch of little houses for them. And I had another box of Transformers, Lincoln Logs, Legos, all sorts of stuff. And there were a bunch of games too. And so during indoor recess, the kids could get stuff from that shelf and bring it into the classroom and just play with it like they'd play at home with their toys. And they loved it. Sometimes they'd actually ask if we could have indoor recess instead of going outside because they wanted to be able to play with all the toys. And they were specifically reserved for recess time. So that made them like extra special. I honestly think that the best thing to do for indoor recess is just to let kids have free play as long as they stay within the confines of any rules that you've set up for your class. If you want things to be a little more structured, you could always use things like Go Noodle. Kids enjoy that and it gets them up and moving, but not in a crazy way. You can let them have a dance party or they can do kids yoga. My kids loved playing The Floor is Lava. Sometimes you might want to switch it up and do something like that for indoor recess instead of free play. Or you could have half of recess be free play with the second half be something on Go Noodle or YouTube or something like that. Another idea is to play some old-fashioned whole group games with your class. The first one that comes to my mind is red light, green light. I'd probably play this in the hallway with my class because you need some space for them to all line up to move forward. To play the game, you have to have everybody line up in a row across the hallway, and then you, as a teacher, stand down the hall a little bit from them in front of them, and you turn your back and say green light, and then the kids can start to walk forward toward you, and then you quickly turn your back around facing them and say red light, and anybody who's still moving after you turn around is out of the game. And you just keep playing like that until somebody reaches you, and then they get to be the caller for the red light, green light. Another fun one is four corners. To play this game, you give each corner of your room a name. You can call them simple things like colors, like red, yellow, green, and orange or something like that. And then choose one person to go out into the hall, and all the rest of the kids pick a corner to go stand in. And then the person in the hallway comes back in blindfolded and calls out a color. Like if they say red, then all the kids who are in the red corner have to sit down. And then they go back out to the hall, and then the remaining kids scatter to the four corners again. And it keeps going like that until there's only one person left in the corner, and then they become the caller. And then another fun game to play with your whole class is Heads Up, 7 Up. And for this game, you just pick 7 kids to stand at the front of the room, and the rest of the class sits at their table with their heads down. And then the 7 kids walk around quietly, and they choose one kid to tap on the shoulder. And if you get tapped, you have to keep your head down, but you raise your hand up so the other 7 know that you've been tapped. And then when all 7 kids have tapped somebody, they go back up to the front of the room, and then everybody lifts up their heads, and the 7 that were tapped stand up, and they have to guess who they think tapped them. So if they're right, they switch places with the person. If they're wrong, they just sit back down, and you just keep going through it, playing with 7 kids tapping the other kids. So there you have it. Lots of different ways to make indoor recess not only fun for kids, but also keep your sanity in the process. Just remember to establish some rules and expectations so that things don't get too wild. I actually have a list of some of my favorite indoor recess toys that my kids really loved. I'll put a link to that in the show notes so you can check them out. And maybe keep an eye out for some of those kinds of things at garage sales or thrift stores. Also, you can always send a note home with the kids asking parents to donate any old toys that their kids don't really play with anymore for your indoor recess shelf. Just because one kid may be bored with it at home, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to be bored with it. And some kids might really have fun with those toys. I used to ask parents for donations for stuff all the time, and you'd be surprised at what you can get. All right, friends, that's it for today. Don't forget to sign up for the Winter Read Aloud Challenge. You can hop in anytime during the month, and be sure to join the free Facebook group too, because that's where I'm giving away all the fun prizes this month for anybody who participates. So far, people have won gift cards, picture books, and some of my TPT resources too. And I'd really love it if you'd join us. So I'll leave the link for that in the show notes as well. Until next time, remember to make learning feel like play, and I'll see you soon. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you're walking away with some great tips that you can use right away. Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the podcast, I'd love it if you'd leave a review. You can find the show notes and links for everything mentioned in this episode at 𝘆_cie_land.com. I'll see you next week in 𝘆_cie_land.